Hello, everybody. This is Noah and John, and we are with Urban Digs. And today we are talking Manhattan. Johnny, we got a good one today. We got Maria Daou over at CBWarburg Realty, top agent for. I'm just going to read off some stats here. 10 producer at Coldwell Banker Warburg, closed more than 100 million sales in the last few years alone. Named one of America's top real estate agents by sales volume in 2018, 19, 22, 23, 24. This is a consistent theme with Maria. She's doing something right, and we got her for ourselves for the next 15, 20 minutes. Maria, you ready? I'm about to come at you.
Ready.
Okay, here we go. First question on the way. What is going on in the state of the Manhattan markets today?
All right. First, thank you for having me. So I've felt like the New York market actually for at least a year or more has been a double market. There's, across the board, you have some apartments, if they're priced well, renovated, great location, your prime kind of Upper West Side, downtown, I'm seeing bidding wars. Brooklyn. And then if you need any kind of work, you're facing a wall, you're just aspirational pricing, it's just sitting and sitting and sitting. And I've seen that for a while now. I'm experiencing it myself with my listings. I kind of pride myself on getting my sellers to price right, and then it moves, and I've never had a listing sit. I'm having listings sit, and I'm not used to that. And even with dropping prices, they're sitting. And then last year I was in about 4 bidding wars, while other things, and I call listings and they're still sitting, not just my listings. I call brokers to find out what's happening with theirs. So it's really, a double market.
Yeah, it's a tale of two markets. I almost feel like it's like either it's working or it's not working, and there's very few in between. We actually talked about that, Johnny, on a Friday
Yeah.
Report. And Maria, I just want to ask you, these apartments that are sitting, is it because the seller's just not really a real seller? They have a number in mind, and if they get it, they're gonna move, or is there just not a lot of desperation or panic, and they just have time? They want to sell, but they have time, or are they like in denial? Like what's going on there?
Kind of all three, sometimes all three at once. Sometimes each seller is different. There are some I'm finding that, they paid a price for it, and a lot of times it was, I'm seeing a few things from 10 years ago where they paid a price and now they're looking at, probably selling it for about the same or less. And if they put work in and they can barely sell it for less, they're not getting out of it. And if they didn't put work, then how do you even justify the same price? Because now there's the wear and tear of 10 years. And then if you take in the cost of the closing costs and commission and any other kind of taxes, you're looking at a significant loss at every price point. Lower price points, maybe a 50 or 100, and the $4 or $5 million, you're looking potentially $1 million loss. And sometimes it's sellers who pride themselves, especially in New York City, on being, financially savvy or good investors, and then seeing what the stock market's done in the equivalent time. That's a hard pill to swallow. And so some, yes, are holding on and saying, they might not need to. Others are just hoping for that needle in the haystack. And I've done this for 25 years. And the thing about New York is occasionally that works. I've seen sellers hold on, and then all of a sudden, after dead, they get their offer. I've even once been, I was pushing for them to kind of just take a little bit more of a loss, and they refused to. And then they got 3 offers and a bidding war. And that was in the middle of, it's tough in New York because eventually maybe there is somebody who will pay. So if you can hold out, but a lot of times I think they just are not ready. It's all about pricing. I've always been a believer in New York. It's not location. It's price. Except in that rare, really hot market where you just put a price and there were 20, right after COVID when I was seeing 15 offers and best, that was, and I don't think those days are coming back, but that was
Easy listing environment back then, much challenging now.
Yeah. So Noah, thank you. That's exactly where I was going to go. And this is exactly why we developed the UrbanDigs Climate Index, because you can look at what the climate is right now. And I think we may have crossed back into sort of the neutral zone, but you look at the market where it was in like 2015, 16, and the climate index was just sky high, which meant you could throw something on the market. It might be overpriced. It might need work, but you know what? You were probably going to have the buyers come through. And that makes a totally different environment because you're getting that buyer competition pretty much across the spectrum. And now, from what I hear what you're saying, it's not necessarily the case. And I kind of want to drill into that because you mentioned you have some locations that are working. You mentioned it might be a price point thing, and you're drilling into the price. But I want to talk about the shift from co-ops to condos and a lot of the idea that the co-ops are essentially dead. And the Wall Street Journal had an article, which I will, toot my horn that we were a part of. It was lovely to see. And I'm just curious, from your perspective, Maria, because you have such great view of the deal volume. Can co-ops adapt in this new market?
I mean, sadly, there are only a handful of things they can do, because if you're talking about, changing, the thing is, normally I would say changing your like all cash or going to 50%. The problem is nobody, with interest rates, that doesn't even hold as much now. But still, there are some, when you have an all cash co-op or 50%, people still want to be able to finance. So changing those, not as stringent. I think making the renovations a little easier, whether it's the summer work rules or the hours, or it's just so hard and costly to renovate. And it just is the case. These pre-war buildings, which I prefer, that's what I love about New York real estate, is those 100-year-old buildings. But it takes a lot to get them up to, match what you're getting in a brand new condo. And the condos, maybe not the ones from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, but the last, last 2 decades, they kind of got onto, we need to look like a pre-war co-op. So all these new condos are kind of copying them. And so, it's just they could make it a little easier to renovate, change their, down payment requirements. Allow pied-à-terres. It's the most ridiculous thing. When they just don't allow a pied-à-terre, they just maybe a little more just loosen some of the rules. And then in the end, if it needs work, they just have to let sellers lower their prices. I was just talking to a colleague who got her seller to lower the price after 50 showings, an Upper West Side, 2-bedroom, and not a single offer. She lowered the price, and apparently the board, one of the board members was really upset about it and was like, how can you, because of course he had paid more for a lower, so it was like, you just can't do that. I even got that in a condo this year, which is unheard of. We of course they had to accept, but they wrote back, why did you sell it for so little? Like,
Yeah,
I'd love to sell everything for a really high price, but so yeah, I think that's kind of all co-ops, those kind of little tweaks here and there, as the case may be, but they're going to have a rough time. I think,
I always thought, I've been having this conversation for like 15 years with agents, and I trip back to way back when, and it was like, all right, you know what? In 15 years from now, fast forward to today, the newer, younger generation's going to come into the co-ops, and they're going to get on the board, and they're going to loosen these policies and kind of go away from all these. Has that happened at all, or is it another 15 years from now?
I don't think so. Either they don't want to be on these boards, whatever, or then they get on the boards and then they start acting the same way. It's like they, protest. They help a little, and we have seen some, if we're talking about like the Fifth and Park, a couple of buildings that were notoriously 100% all cash and all that, come down to 50% financing allowed, and so
baby steps.
And there. What? Yeah,
baby steps.
Baby steps for what it is. And the same thing, I've been around 25 years. Every time I do a co-op, I say, if I never do another one again, it won't be too soon. And then I do another one. So
but I will put in my plug for the old pre-war co-ops, and even some of the post-war ones, which I think is an unsung point these days, which is, what you're going to get. The building has had years and years to sort of settle in. What the problems are. You can have a great understanding of the age of the mechanicals and what they're going to do. And yes, new buildings are very shiny, but sometimes if it's not done with the best stuff and the best engineering and the best design all the way through, you could run into problems down the road, which you can be very, very expensive. Even you look at the One Seaport building, which just had a write-up in the New Yorker, that's because it's shaped like a banana, and the whole thing is just completely stopped. So you have these issues in some of the new ones, which you don't necessarily have in the pre-war ones. And sometimes, they might have some local law 97 issues. Yes, they can have, they're going to require maintenance, but at least you kind of know what you're going to get. And I'm wondering if that shapes them into a little bit of a value play at this point, knowing that there's
I mean, I agree 100%, which is why I prefer pre-war. I mean, I've sold $7 million, $20 million apartments where the floors are lifting up. I mean, I have such a hard time telling I mean, I always try to take people to pre-war co-op. I mean, the wood floors are wood floors, the walls are walls. Like you said, you know what you're getting. So they just have to, help themselves out a little. And I think those, and they are value paid because the cost of renovation, I remember when 250 a foot, 500 was, a mega renovation. Now you're 700, those crazy numbers.
Forget 700. We skipped to 1,000 and over 1,000. We missed 700.
Yeah. Oh,
that
yeah.
was like,
I mean,
we just jumped over it.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, just a basic reno. So that's just, you can't, and that not the interest rates are that good, but you can't finance renovations and the length of time. So anyway, they can kind of make some of the, expenses and some of the hurdles a little lower they could get, because again, I do think a lot of my buyers, I actually tend to sell more pre-war than post-war, and I tend to do more co-ops than condos because I love them. I can sell them better. I can really, be excited about the history. They're usually in, not as much of a periphery neighborhood, prime Upper West Side of pre-war co-ops. They're a handful. I just have a buyer who wants a pied-à-terre. And I actually was able to send them a list, like from my memory, street by street, every condo on the Upper West Side. And it kind of showed them, I was like, this is what you're getting. So there's no magic condo that's going to appear. You want this pre-war feel. There are like 5, or something. So
well, it's interesting because I remember a long time ago when we used to represent buyers, there was a buyer client of ours really, really wanted something in the Ansonia, and the layout was the funkiest, weirdest layout. But just the feel of the outside of the building when you walk home, like, this is where I live, was such a draw that they made a play for it. I'll never forget that.
It's one of my favorite buildings. I live like 2 blocks away. I love the Ansonia. Just architecturally,
They don't make them like that anymore. I mean, some of these buildings are just gorgeous. And I love the value play that you guys are talking about. I love it, especially for those that know a little bit about the renovation space and the contractors and the materials and the people and the processes and all that stuff, and they got the costs contained, and they could do that mega renovation for 300 or under a square foot because they got their team in place. I think there's a flip play going on over there. I think they're out there. I think there are people out there. John and I did a couple advisor reports for a couple of these people that are looking to flip. It's just an interesting dynamic. I wonder how many people are looking for that kind of thing. Great point. I want to move on here, Maria. I want to go to the next question. It seems like it's a tricky market, right? We talked about how it's either working or it's not, very little middle ground. Tough for sellers to think that they're leaving money on the table. Tough for buyers out there that are looking for value in a tight inventory market. How do you manage expectations for buyers and sellers in this market?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I first even meet with a seller, I kind of, I give both. I'm a big believer in I like to give I know I'm going up against like a potential other broker who's just giving them a big number to get the listing. That's just never been me. I just can't do that. So I give them, look, I'd love to get you this number, but this is where the market is. I try to come with comps, even though sometimes comps are just not comping, these days, because there are like so many factors. So, I basically kind of talk them through what's happening, explain to them that, we'll put it on, the market's very efficient. We'll see what the response is. And if you're not getting anything, I mean, you have to, it's terrible to tell somebody to just kind of, cut your losses and take, I tell them I know it's not my $100,000, but, you have to, do you want to hold on to this for several more months or years? Do you want to, sometimes they say, well, what if we sublet it? And then you have the wear and tear and there's no guarantee the market is going to be better. So I'm kind of a hand holder. I talk them through every possible, scenario. And I kind of let them, though, in the end, get to the, point themselves where they see it. I give them as much information as I can, and then I let them kind of sit with it and digest it. And, it's sellers in general have a hard time kind of taking what's an emotional thing, an attachment, and turning it into a commodity or, a product. And so it's just a lot of hand-holding and managing kind of their expectation, like just explaining exactly how efficient the market is, and what they can expect. And then sometimes just really telling them to cut their losses and invest their money in the stock, or whatever reason it is they're selling, you know, or if they just need to move on instead of just holding on for that big number. Because I just don't see it, that kind of crazed market coming again. So look, none of us can predict, nobody predicted COVID or what happened after COVID. So I like those days, you know, and people who did were always wrong. So I just kind of try to tell them for the foreseeable future, like look at like 1 month out, 3 months out, you know, 6 months out. And where do you know, what is your ultimate goal? Like, what are you trying to achieve here? You know, if it's just to move on, then let's try. We can try for a slightly bigger number, but, and I usually don't advise that, but if they're dead set on it, I go with it. And then for buyers, you know, if they, I try to push them if it looks like their budget is not within where, you know, exactly where they want to be, you know, what can they give up? What can they push the parameter? I know you might not want to go above this street, but humor me, or look at what you can get if you go there and look at, you know, so I'm kind of same thing, like managing their expectations, especially in this market, because of the kind of, I think buyers think it's a buyer's market. I can offer anything. Why won't they do this? And if it's a hot property, there are 20 other buyers who want it. And, you know, if, yeah, it's.
How are your buyers? Are they happy with today's market? Are they frustrated? Do they think they're not getting good value? Or are they asking for more options? What's their mindset?
I mean, there still is very little good inventory. I just had a buyer be part of a bidding war. I mean, we saw some within the same like 20 block radius. We went to open houses, and 3 of them, there was nobody at the open house. And they were just sitting there. And then one had like 20 people, and it went to a best and final. And we came, you know, went over ask, and there are still people knocking at the door trying to get in. But that buyer kind of, well, they're getting everything, almost everything. Nobody gets everything, you know, but checked off enough of the things they wanted. And I think that's all you can do, even really in any market. There's always something. At every price point, I mean, I said that there's always something. I mean, at 20 million, you're giving up something. First time I went and saw, it was like, I don't know, 15 years ago, one of those big apartments. I thought, my buyer's now going to see everything. And it was a Fifth Avenue. And then there was no way you could make the bathroom any bigger. It just was one of those old buildings. And at $20 million, you had to have a his and her bathroom because you couldn't do a double sink. So there's always compromise. And, you know, so I'm very big on hand holding and listening, and I feel like I'm more of and I was a psych major, more of a therapist than
Me too.
You know, a broker. Yeah.
So here's to me what's really tricky about this whole conversation, because everything you just talked about is how you succeed on a client level, and I really love to dig into how you take that success and you apply it to your business. I mean, how does that sort of grow into repeat clients? I mean, is it marketing? Is it social? Is it all referral? How do you manage the growth of your business with that such personal attention to clients?
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I've done this for actually 27 years. The first 2 years I did rentals. Back in the day when there was like circling, you know, classified ads in the New York Times.
We call it the grind in the industry.
Yes, I mean, I can't believe that I did that. And I did not actually want to be a broker. And when I became a broker, I'd had a really bad experience myself with just a really kind of sleazy guy. And I thought, oh my God, now I'm doing this. If I'm going to do it, I am going to be the world's nicest broker. I am going to, you know, and that's kind of stuck with me. And so I have cut commissions, much to the chagrin of my company. Sometimes I take, you know, here and there, because the idea is kind of bringing everybody together. My ultimate goal is to make everybody happy, make the deal happen, and not worry about what I end up with. And so I've always, even though, trust me, like every broker, we're all working hard. We all need to we're not doing this for the fun of it. You know, it's a job. But I really try to just I'm available. Sometimes it's too much, like 6 a.m. and midnight. I'm very responsive. I treat every client, whether it's a 500,000 or 20 million, the same way. There's no kind of, I really try to do all my own work. I've never kind of had a team or an assistant, or, you know, I do 98% or 99% of the work. And yeah, so my referral business grew. I gave up a lot of free advice. I am a big believer in listening to a lot of your podcasts, and then people call me, and sometimes I talk people out of selling or buying because it just doesn't make sense. And so I think people eventually just trust that I'm not just there for myself. I'm more of a, a guidance counselor, a psychologist, a therapist. Yeah.
All the hats.
I love it. I'm just going to sneak in a quick aside, which is, so many people know the story, but not, I'm just going to announce it to the world here. So Noah and I met because Noah was my buyer broker when I went to buy an apartment. And I think I met him in like 2007, 8.
Right,
and
right
it was
before the financial crisis.
Right before the financial crisis. And I'm looking at these things and I was like, I wouldn't buy anything right now. And I was like, what? He's like, the way things are looking, it doesn't seem like a great market for housing. I was like,
I told all my clients,
where's the camera? Where's the camera? Am I on some kind of show? But I mean, it immediately fostered this sort of environment of trust. Like, okay, this guy he's looking out for my best interest. It's like, this is so refreshing because, I've been doing this on my own as a buyer, like going to all these open houses. And Noah was the first guy to be like, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And I'm like, wait, what? You're not supposed to say that. So, and here we are now. Never had a fight. So,
hey, John, little Macro Monday plug, credit spreads were widening. So,
there you go.
Sorry, that's a Macro Monday thing. If you don't know it, join Macro Monday if you want that. But no, I remember that time, and that was a tough time because I wrote about it on the blog. I publicly wrote about it, and I got a lot of slack from the industry. But there was very real reasons why we were doing it. Crazy time. I totally respect that. Maria, I got to ask you, how much do you spend on marketing? How much money? How much time?
Zero.
how much do you spend on social media? How much money? How much time?
Zero. Really. I'm
I'm doing this for a reason. How much of your business would you say is referral?
100? 99.
Okay. Yeah. Agents, I did that for a reason. 0% marketing, 0% social, 100% referral, almost 100% referral. This is what we're looking for. Like when young agents are starting out trying to build that business and everyone says to us, this is a people business. This is a relationship business, a trust business. This is a referral business. I just want to thank you for all those things. And I hope everyone re-listens to what you were talking about for keys to referral success, because at the end of the day, all those things are accurate and it's so easy to achieve if you just focus on the prize.
But I have to imagine, and I don't want to run too long here, but I have to imagine at some point it is frustrating, especially when you work with buyers, because they go through all these steps and then nothing happens. Or sometimes you get sellers that are so stuck on a price and they refuse to lower it and then nothing happens. And you've already put all that effort in. We're just wondering how you can sort of manage that while you're working with other more successful clients. Like, how do you handle the disappointment?
How do you therapist yourself?
That's right.
It's tough, honestly. Like this one, I can't sell. I tend to become friendly or friends sometimes, genuinely, with my clients, a lot of them. And so I take it to heart. I have sleepless nights if I miss, something, if I can't sell it. I call them to check in on them. And while I'd be devastated, I haven't yet lost a listing, I'd be upset, but I would even understand, because I want the ultimate goal is to sell it, and hopefully they'll remember a good experience with me and call me. And so if I'm really failing in some capacity, and I'm not gloating, I rarely do. I've been lucky, sellers listen to me, and, like I said, because it's all referral, they trust me. But like this one occasion, I'm really struggling that I can't sell this. And it's a lot of, sleepless nights, honestly, because I do take it very, it's personally, because I have to do a good job for them because they trusted me. And so I have to make sure, I get them to that point. I mean, I worry less sometimes about paying too much or paying too little, because I think long-term that number won't matter. It's just getting it to the finish line is,
Yeah, it seems like it drives you. And you know what? Sometimes that failed listing, you know what? Either they'll come back or they'll tell their friends or their family or something. Somehow that derivative of exposure will tentacle back to you in a transaction when you least expect it. Sometimes that happens. All right, well, we're out of time and I have one last question. So I'm going to ask you quickly, Maria.
Okay.
This has been great, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah.
A lot of agents listening to this, a lot of younger agents that have gotten to a certain level, trying to get to a new level. If you went back in time and you met your younger self, knowing everything you know now, what would you tell them? What critical tip or strategy would you advise?
I would say yes to everything and like talked to a lot of experienced brokers. Kind of, I kept to myself at first. I think I mean, I had the couple of years of rental experience, but when I got into sales, I wasn't sure. And if it was something, I was also a single mom. I was juggling things, and I thought, well, this I won't go. This I can't take on. I wish there was the year it finally like took off for me is when I said, I'm just going to say yeah, whether it's the smallest deal, the biggest deal, a complicated thing, just say yes to everything. And I started coming into the office a little more. I was notorious for like not coming in, and seeing that I could really, talk to a more experienced broker and learn from them. And then just, seeing a lot of stuff, like seeing just a lot of inventory. I didn't, I tried where I could, and my rental experience showed me a lot, but because I was always so busy with my kids, which all legit, you can only do so much if you have family and stuff, but as much as you can, kind of, it took me a while to put myself 100% into it. And what I'll say about kind of all that and referral, it's a tough business. You have to stick with it, but you have to do its work. It's not all that flashy stuff, and it's not social media, in my opinion. Social media is a new thing. Learning the inventory, and in New York City, I don't know about the rest of the country with houses, it's a lot of inventory to learn. The pre-war, the post-war, the kind of layouts, the 50s buildings, 60s. I mean, there's so much co-op. So you really have to just pound the pavement. Honestly, my 2 years of rentals really taught me a lot, because I did, I think, 70 rentals a year. Now, this is 1998, 99. Wow. So when you could do, but that volume of not just seeing, and you're seeing like 10 properties per client. I mean, I've seen thousands of apartments. And then dealing with the parents for guaranteeing a group of 4 kids who want to share, because I'm dealing with like parents in Texas who are millionaires and have to guarantee a rental. Like all that experience now when I'm dealing with a buyer on Park Avenue, in a weird way, was not like I got all that experience 25 years ago. So yeah, I mean, just and trust you. Like, I wish I trusted myself. I gave away a lot, maybe a little too much free advice, because I felt like brokers, what do we do? But then I really started seeing the value. But
right, I just want to echo that point about experience, because I think it's in these days of AI and a deluge of data, I think there's really no experience for, I mean, as you said, you've seen thousands of apartments, and as buyers brokers, so did we. You just go into a building and you get an immediate sort of visceral sense about the hallways and the lobby and the service level and the elevator, the quality, the building, the views, all of that stuff. Just, you can't, some of these apartments look so good on paper, but unless you know the building, you're like, oh, look, it looks great, the price is right, but you are probably not going to want to live there. Or yes, it's expensive, but my goodness, this building is amazing. I mean, there's so many things that can't be quantified, that can't just get crunched into some model that brokers have as experience. And I also want to echo your point about the other side of experience, which is you're dealing with all these, unstructured problems of, well, how do I solve this? What's the path to get a solution here? And all of these things are just, unless you've done it a handful of times, it's going to seem like it's an unsolvable problem. But the more you do it and the more you work through it, the easier these answers come. And I think that's such great advice. I hope a lot of people take you up. Just say yes, get out there, join a team, do something, just get as much experience as you can, because it's going to pay dividends later.
Yeah, can I say one more thing? So apropos of that, I think I always wanted listings. Like I wanted to, because especially in a good market, you want a listing because you think walk in, you sell it. And so all these young brokers just want to get listings. But if you don't, the experience I gleaned as a buyer's broker, going into all these apartments, now when I list an apartment, I always come at it from the vision of the buyer. So when buyers walk in, before they even walk in, whether they're direct or with a broker, I'm kind of predicting what they're going to see. Like I find the flaws before they do, and I'm not going to go announce them because I work for my seller and I want but you have to be prepared that they are going to see all those things. And I sometimes see them and more, sadly, before they do, but it prepares me with an answer and not a BS answer of no, nothing to see here. The sky is yellow. I mean, then I look like an idiot and nobody trusts me. So I'd rather say, yes, you're right. This is a flaw, but look at how we can fix it. Or everything has a flaw, but it's a lesser flaw and you can work around it,
I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. We also talk about this on our show, to reverse the cap and flip the situation and go into the buyer's mindset or the seller's mindset and say, well, what would you think about this property? And what would you think about these high maintenance and the no views and the unrenovated property
100%.
and the no doorman and all the other things that sellers tend to typically ignore conveniently when they're listing their price. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, the maintenance doesn't matter, that high maintenance.
I
No one
painted
cares
everything
about it.
black
Let's
because
let's shoot for the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great point. This has been awesome. This has
Thank
been
you.
awesome. Maria, thank you so much
Thank you
for
both.
coming on here and sharing all of your wisdom. Maria Daou, CBWarburg Realty. If you enjoyed this, please just email her and say thank you and say hello. You never know when you do a deal together, and it's always great to know other great agents, especially for intelligence gathering. You could use Maria for intelligence gathering. Sorry, Maria, but that's what's
Anytime.
going on. That's what we have to do. John Walkup, thank you very much. I am Noah Rosenblatt. This has been Talking Manhattan. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.